Now then guys, today we're going to be talking about what stablecoins are. In this video we're going to discuss, are they the future of money? Are they important? Do you need to go buy them? We're going to break it down in this presentation. So, according to my research, don't feel like you have to go away and start buying as a stablecoin, start doing stuff with them. Hopefully this just gives you a bit of, education behind them and why you should be interested in them. So by the numbers, so as of last year, they were over 300 billion in market cap. The transaction, according to a business review in 2025, was 11 trillion, which is absolutely huge. When I saw that, I was like, didn't think it'd be anywhere near a trillion. So that's pretty insane. Obviously, if that's true, if that study is correct, they're pegged to the US dollar. So essentially, I guess the easiest way to know what they are is they're a crypto coin pegged to the dollar. So that is like the simplest term to know what they are. And the market cap is projected to be 3 trillion by the end of the decade, which is pretty insane, which is why, if you get to understand them now, you can really have that edge when, I guess, the masses know what they are. So what is it? So it's a digital token pegged to the US dollar, as I mentioned earlier. It's backed by real assets, so US Treasuries, cash. They move globally 24/7. So if you want to, on a Sunday, let's say, do a business transaction, but the banks aren't open or it's going to take a few business days, you could technically, if you knew the guy and trusted them, you could technically just do it on the blockchain there and then on a Sunday afternoon to a different country. Let's say you're based in the US, you want to do it to the UK, or you want to do it to, I don't know, Dubai. Bang, on the Ethereum blockchain, may take half an hour, it might be quicker on Solana. Whatever, you can just do a transaction there and then. So it's a 24/7 way of moving money that doesn't involve banks, which is pretty good. And yeah, anyone on it with a smartphone could hold dollars, which is pretty insane. So what's a T-bill? So this is what stable coins are backed by. So it's a short-term loan to the US government. So you pay 980, as I've got in the little description. The government pays you 1,000 back in weeks, so that could be like a fixed time. So you might get 2-year T-bills and so on and so forth. So it's backed by full faith of the US dollar. So this is just I wanted to explain what T-bills were in case people didn't know what they were, because it's not something that I'm too familiar with, if I'm going to be completely honest, because it's not something that I ever really had to know, to be fair. Like in markets, there's so many nuances and different things. You don't have to be an expert on everything. You just have to be an expert on like a few things, as I mentioned in other videos. But I wanted to put this in because it's what stablecoins are linked to and back to, essentially. So as you can see there, why it matters, every dollar of a stablecoin is a dollar invested in T-bills. So stablecoin growth equals automatic demand for US government debt, which is quite important. We'll get onto that later on. So why someone in Turkey would want USDT, or why would they want the stablecoin? So as you know, Turkey, I think Argentina, a couple other countries are going through hyperinflation. So let's say, for example, you get paid, your currency is going to is hyperinflating. You could just buy UST on the blockchain, and then you own a currency which isn't hyperinflating. So you can get paid in your currency and then purchase one that is not hyperinflating. Obviously, that all currencies are inflating, but there's I think Michael Howell, who we'll reference later on, calls it like the cleanest shirt in the laundry. So you can just instantly buy on the blockchain something, so the government can't block it. Your savings are wiped out by inflation, and look, it's losing value weekly. Like in hyperinflating, it's not losing value. Over a year, you're probably, you're not going to lose too much in a checking account in the US, but if you're in Turkey or Argentina, months matter, right? So it's just an easy way for you to protect your money without putting in an asset and worrying about whether to buy it, buy low, sell high, all that stuff. So it's a different way of owning a different currency that is more accessible. Some countries will have, different laws on crypto and stuff, but use Turkey here. To be fair, if I'm going to complete this, I don't know the crypto laws in Turkey, but just wanted to bring this in as like a hyperinflation, because this is another argument for it demands the US dollars, because people will want dollars because they won't want their hyperinflating currency. So I'm not too sure if you can do this in Turkey, but there is some arguments I have heard. So I wanted to put this in, like it's another way of strengthening the US dollar potentially, because it's not hyperinflated like the Turkish lira. So this is quoting Michael Howell, someone I really recommend you checking out from Cross Border Capital. I believe he's changed his name recently. I can't quite remember, but I'll reference him in the description. So the dollar stablecoins are the second straw. So they're sucking global liquidity into the US Treasury backed assets, which we referenced earlier, bypassing traditional banks, which is basically re-dollarizing the world. So it's basically a debt monetization weapon that they can use. So people are accumulating US treasuries through stablecoins in a different way. So if US want to get a handle on their debt, they could potentially do it through stablecoins. So hopefully that starts to make sense of why these could be really important moving forward. Like the US government could think, oh, we need to get these stablecoins approved, the Genius Act, those type of things, get these to be widely accessible to everyone around the world so they can start to own US debt in a brand new way. So these could be a really important factor over the next coming years. Only time will tell. We can't predict the future. But wanted to put this in. I would do some further reading if you want to on Michael Howell, but wanted to put this in because it's interesting to know. It's just another way, kind of what I mentioned earlier, people accessing US Treasury backed assets. So one thing that he talks about a lot is the capital wars. I believe he wrote a book on it. So the US versus China. So China accumulating gold, I believe, at record levels, whereas the US are potentially going to combat their debt through stablecoins. So you can see there, China one way, the US the other. They're going to go head to head, I guess, in this like debts kind of world to really solve their crisis. So only time will tell. But China's gold purchases, are the tell that this is playing out in real time. So China, because they won't want to strengthen the US dollar via stablecoins, so they're accumulating loads of gold. There's loads of data on this that they're currently doing this. I believe they're devaluing their own currency, the Chinese yuan, to accumulate gold. So I'd definitely do some research there, but there is data out there suggesting that because they don't want to back the US dollar. So there is a bit of a currency battle there going on, and it's playing out in real time, as Michael Howell mentioned. But he's done loads of work on this, so he's got tons of podcasts and so on. So definitely go check them out. But yeah, something to do more reading on because this is definitely something which could be quite important as the years goes on. But wanted to make you aware of it because this is where the US could think, oh, we need to use stablecoins and make it an important part of our currency and how we're going to move forward. So, the Treasury demand. So the user buys stablecoins, the issuer receives fiat dollars, the issuer buys treasuries, US demand strengthens. So Tether and Circle, USDC, now hold more US treasuries than like Saudi Arabia. And that is only going to probably increase as stablecoin adoption increases. So these are, I believe it's probably even, there's some more countries now that they're overtaking in terms of owning US treasuries. So as I mentioned, these are something you want to be doing your research on and be really aware of. Stablecoins are going to be, or they should be, a big player. The US government should be thinking, right, we need to play this. This could strengthen the dollar. This could be it's not a way out of the debt, right? But it's a different angle which wasn't available to them 15 years ago. So really interesting mechanism playing out in real time, as I mentioned earlier. And it is quite funny that crypto was this big old scam, but it might have actually boiled down to stable coins being one of the very few winners of crypto, which it looks like it is, especially with over, what was it, $1 trillion? Was it 11 trillion earlier in the presentation? 11 trillion transaction. I mean, it's crazy, right? So it's happening in real time. That this is going to be definitely something you want to be considering and what you want to be researching and just be aware of moving forward, and maybe even be familiar with using and have actually some money in stable coins. If you've got, if you want to be diversified, have your money diversified, maybe have a little bit in stable coins, as a diversification strategy, maybe. Obviously you've got to make your own opinion on that, but maybe it's something to consider. So the US just made stablecoin official. So they have had the Genius Act approved. So that was signed in July last year. So they're creating federal frameworks right now. I believe there was some more kind of breakthroughs through the Genius Act quite recently as well. But yeah, they're trying to make a bank compliant. There was an interview actually of Jamie Dimon talking about Coinbase, like they should start their own bank and so on, and he's annoyed that they could potentially lose some power. But yeah, look, Singapore and Hong Kong already aligning with the US standards. So again, it's going to be really interesting to see what stablecoins plays out, because it's now getting the frameworks put in place. It's now being approved. It's going to be really interesting. So it's going to be good to see what comes of this whole stablecoin kind of, frenzy, and how important it is going to be moving forward. Because I think if you walk around on the streets and you ask people what stablecoins are, no one will really know what they are. They won't have a clue. Whereas, this, presentation or just watching a video about stablecoins is going to put you really far ahead. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out now. Frameworks and acts are being approved and things are starting to, be put in place. So, yeah, what could go wrong? So, massive selling forces Treasury fire sales. So, sovereign threat. So, China and the EU see the dollar as a weaponization. So, we talked about this earlier. I believe the UK might be putting on a ban or a cap on the amount of US stablecoins you can own. I believe that might be something I read. You have to check that out. The EU, I think, have put in their own laws in around this. China, obviously, I think you can't use crypto there. It's banned. So there's some people are already seeing this, I think, as a threat, and they're already trying to put acts to combat it already. Deposits leave banks for stablecoins, which obviously covers traditional lending. So you might not have any money in the bank and have it all in stable coins. That's obviously up to the investor. And then wealth concentration, so privates, two companies just have all the wealth of the stable coin. So some of this stuff, it's all speculative. We all don't know if it's going to be true or not, but I feel like the sovereign threat is definitely the one to stay on top of. But people cover this a lot. Michael Howell, I mentioned earlier, he does a lot of work on this. Definitely worth watching a podcast of his. He's always on them, and they're a really good watch. But that's probably the main one to watch. There's already laws being put in place to counteract people accumulating USDT, USDC, and so on. So where I'm watching, so yeah, the infrastructure. So the Treasury loop is real. So holding more treasuries than Saudi Arabia means that, okay, cool. Now that they're overtaking countries, that there's definitely going to be some truth to this. You'd think so. Like the legs are already in place. The hyperinflation for me is the strongest use case. Like citizens can just buy USDT and USDC and other types of stable coins. So that is for me is the strongest use case. Like if you're in a third world country in hyperinflation and you're not considering this, saying I'd check the laws and so on, but I'd definitely have a look, because this is a way to combat that, and it's something you should be considering without having to risk your money in a risky asset or whatever. So that goes up and down. Like these aren't very volatile things, but it's a way to hedge yourself already against hyperinflation. And then dollar trust is the foundation. So this is assuming that the US dollar is still trusted as the number one. Yes, other countries can start their own stablecoin, but the demand probably just won't be there, to be honest. But, this is... Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds, but it's useful to know. But for me, yeah, the hyperinflation is the strongest use case for stablecoins. So as you can see, all the data referenced is right here. So feel free to go check it out. I'll put some links below as well to some of the stuff I mentioned. But yeah, stablecoins, you could say it's early, but $11 trillion of transactions, you could say it's not. But if you walk down the street and ask people what stablecoins are, I don't think people would know. I even think finance YouTube channels aren't really talking about stablecoins, how important they could be. Like it's still quite a niche topic. So hopefully, being a bit early, understanding them can make us, it probably won't make us any money, but it'll make us more knowledgeable about risks and so on going into the near future. And if you're in a country with hyperinflation, definitely worth reading the laws and checking out your kind of rules in and around stablecoins, because it could be could be useful something to do, but obviously do that at your own discretion. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I do have a weekly or just a newsletter that I do, which is absolutely free for you guys to check out. So there will be links below. So go check that out, and I will see you in the next one.